What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Asia Orangio, and I'm the CEO and founder of DemandMaven, where we work with SaaS companies and early stage startups on reaching their very first growth milestones, troubleshooting their growth, and defining go-to-market strategy. Today, we are going to discuss everything regarding to defining a go-to-market strategy, and more specifically, how to do this in exactly 5 steps. Defining go-to-market strategy is one of those things that I think really confounds founders and certainly sounds pretty mystical when it comes to exactly what go-to-market is. But if you look in my channel, just through some of the other videos, you'll find a few that actually do define go-to-market strategy, and then some other aspects of go-to-market strategy that you might not have considered. Overall, however, the ultimate goal of defining a go-to-market strategy is to ultimately help you define the way upon which you are going to win in a particular market. So without further ado, let's jump into the first step. Step number 1 is defining clear objectives. In order for you to know even what to build from a strategic perspective, or what the plan is going to be, what things do you need to implement, we ultimately need to know where we're going. And if we don't know where we're going, it's actually going to get even harder to really figure out what we need to do to accomplish our dreams. What is all of this for? There are tons of frameworks that you can use to define goals. A goal or an objective is really just a different way of saying, what do you ultimately need in order for you to take a step closer to winning that market? In this particular case, you can use OKRs, which are objectives and key results. So what is the ultimate objective that we're trying to achieve, and what are the points of proof that we've actually achieved that? So key results typically point to the ultimate objective as having proved it, either accomplished or not accomplished. But perhaps the most common goal framework is the SMART goal or the SMARTer goal framework, which just means that the goal is specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's time-based in some kind of way. Basically, if there's one thing to take away from step number 1, just make sure that you spend some time really identifying where exactly it is that you would like to go with the business, with the startup, the SaaS company, whatever it is. You can use this process for honestly anything. But especially when it comes to the SaaS company and the business itself, what is the one thing that would bring you a step even closer to winning the market when it comes to go-to-market strategy? Step number 2. Okay, this one is one of the ones that I honestly think it just depends on what you prefer, but I highly recommend using some kind of framework or model in order for you to lay the entire business out on a piece of paper and really just see it from a bird's eye view in terms of what decisions you're going to make where. One of the most common frameworks that we've heard of are actually what's called pirate metrics, which is the AARRR. And it is acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. You can use a model similar to that. The one that I use is actually one that was designed by Brian Balfour, and it is the product model market channel fit framework. And originally he used this framework to really just show that it takes way more than just product market fit to build a multi-million-dollar business. You actually need the model and the channels as well that supplement and support each other, but then also especially product market. With that said, however, I like to actually use it in a number of ways, but one of them is just putting it up on a mural board, or just even a whiteboard would do, and using sticky notes. And in every single quadrant, what are the decisions that we are making in every single quadrant, whether it's product, whether it's model, market, channel, etc. So for example, in the product quadrant, you are going to list out what you're ultimately going to sell. What are the features? What are the things that really make the product stand out from a market perspective? And then in the market quadrant, you're going to list out the different customer segments, potential competitors, and other just things that you would need to make sure that you keep note of when it comes to the market. Channels, you would list out the particular channels that you're really thinking about going to market with. And then finally, the model. What are some of the aspects of the model that you can also go to market with, or you're already going to market with? So for example, free trial model, self-serve, are you using a demo model instead? Is the organization going to be primarily sales-led in the beginning and then maybe transitioning over into much more marketing-led or what have you later? Do you charge for onboarding? Do you have any setup fees? Have you decided to do away with that? Do you want to launch with an opt-in or an opt-out free trial or self-serve model. These are all the different kinds of nuances and variations when it comes to what you can do with a model perspective. As a quick recap, step number 2 is really all about using whatever framework is going to help you think in the best way about your business. But personally, like I said, I prefer to use Brian Balfour's product market model channel fit framework as a way to just lay the entire business out on a piece of paper and just take a look at what we've got. Step number 3. Okay, this is arguably the most critical step because we ultimately cannot grow a business without customers. So step number 3 is all about really defining and committing to an ideal customer segment or an ideal target market. I use those words relatively interchangeably. However, there are some slight nuances. A target market indicates the entire market as a whole, whereas a customer segment is usually a slice of that market pie. So if we are targeting SaaS companies, a slice of that market might be early stage, Series A, founders with less than 5 people on the team. Much more specific. However, step number 3 is all about defining what those initial customer segments are going to be and also getting really crystal clear about what makes this particular segment a great fit, or if it's not a great fit now, what are we going to do in order to ensure that it will become eventually. In this step, I always encourage founders to get incredibly specific about exactly what makes this customer segment unique, and also what about the product makes this solution the best solution for them. How do we provide the absolute most value to these customers as they are today? The other thing, however, that I recommend is to get really specific from a psychological perspective about this customer segment. So taking the time to identify what pains they have, what other solutions they've considered, why yours is actually the best, what are the true value propositions that this customer segment directly experiences from using the product, and being careful not to just make this up, but to actually do the research and to interview customers and to talk to them and to really understand how do they think about it. Because if they're thinking it and if they're experiencing it, there's 10 others just like them. That's the critical part of this step. All right, step number 4. We're cranking right through this. It is to know your success gaps. Success gaps is a term that you might have heard me say. There are others who also use this term. I've definitely heard of success gaps, of course, but then there's also any limiting factors, etc. But success gaps, the way I like to describe them at least, is these are the things that ultimately block us from reaching our goals. They are the gaps from point A to point B, and we ultimately need to cross the chasm in order to achieve our ultimate objective. So this whole why are we here question, success gaps really point out exactly what is currently blocking us today from achieving that. Some examples of success gaps can include maybe you don't have the right tools or resources in order for you to accomplish a critical component of your strategy. It could also be that maybe there's some feature parity challenges where there's a bunch of other competitors in the market and you need to catch up in some ways from a feature perspective. This could also be maybe you haven't identified a really highly scalable acquisition channel. It really runs the gamut whenever it comes to success gaps, but they touch every single part of the business. It's not limited to any one particular area. It's everything when it comes to blocking you from achieving that goal. Okay, the other thing I want to make sure to just communicate about success gaps is that it's not meant to make you feel bad. I think a lot of founders, they look at the long list of success gaps and they just get really overwhelmed with how many of them there are. But having defined these for countless businesses in this industry, I can tell you without a doubt that if you have a very short list of success gaps, it's because of one of two reasons. We're either ultimately not even, like we've never even started the journey, meaning we haven't even really done enough real business to know what we don't know, and then also to start to really identify those known unknowns. We haven't even started the journey yet. It's impossible to figure out what your success gaps are until you've at least started some part of the process. Of course, you can do research and identify any knowledge gaps, but eventually you start to learn. And then once you learn, that opens up more opportunities and more pathways that you can go down from a business perspective. But the second reason is probably one of the I would say it's probably more common, but it's because we're not being honest with ourselves. I think that this is another part of the success gap process. Success gaps are not there to make you feel bad. It is so important to remember that. If anything, it's to help you see visually and also to really take the time to dig deep into what really does block me from reaching my goals. Is it me? Is it the way that the business is currently configured and set up today? Is it the way that we're operating? Are we actually inefficient in other areas and more efficient in others? Or is it truly just it really comes down to product? I mean, it could just be all of those, none of those. Success gaps are just everywhere. Like, I just don't know how else to explain them. But again, they're not there to make you feel bad. That's not the point of that exercise. It is so that way you can start to plan to overcome them. And the other part too is it's also to help you choose projects that directly speak to those particular success gaps, in addition to bringing you closer to your objective and bringing you closer to your goal. One last thing I'm going to add to success gaps is that success gaps can also include potential threats or risks. So for example, if you know for a fact that even if you were to launch a bunch of campaigns, you couldn't measure the success of them, then that lack of analytics, that analytics debt that you might know about already, a success gap. It's part of the process. So again, not to make you feel bad. It's more than anything to ensure that we've done our due diligence when it comes to defining our strategy moving forward. Okay, step number 5. We're on the last step. This, my friends, this is what takes a list of tactics and tasks and turns them into a strategy. It's to set new guiding principles. Guiding principles in strategy speak. These are the new mantras that you are going to live by in order to achieve your goals, to overcome those success gaps, and to ultimately just emerge and transform into the badass CEO, founder, business owner, whatever, that we all know that you ultimately are. These guiding principles will inspire your executives, your VPs, your directors if you have them in the business. They also trickle all the way down into really inspiring and motivating any contractors, freelancers, employees that you also may have in the business. Guiding principles, they are like the light that you are going to live by, knowing what you know about your success gaps and knowing where you ultimately want to go and knowing where you currently are. These are, they are just like the pinnacles. They are going to be something that you are going to embody for the next 60, 90 days, 180 days, however long it takes until you start to really track and measure those objectives. Setting guiding principles is actually not that hard, however. So the way that you would think about this is you would think about what you're going to do differently. How are you going to act differently moving forward in order to win? How is the team going to act differently in order to win, and also what decisions are you going to be making moving forward? How are you going to double down on what is a positive indicator that you are moving closer towards your goal? These are the flavors of guiding principles, but let me give you a few examples. Let's say I run a SaaS business that really struggles with churn. It's got a very big churn problem, and improving retention is our ultimate objective. It's what we want to accomplish. But we've got a few success gaps. So it could actually be that our product maybe doesn't have the right kinds of features. It could also be that we're attracting the wrong kinds of customers. It also could be that we don't know either way and we need to do some research in order to figure that out. However, our guiding principles might sound something like providing an amazing experience from day one. Another one might be create value in the product from day one. So how do we shorten our time to value cycle when it comes to the product? It could also be that we are going to build in public and build often, and also show new features and show iterations of the product to customers as early and as often as possible. You'll notice that it's not necessarily just a one particular tactic kind of thing. We don't just do it once. We have to do this consistently. It's a guiding principle, meaning it's not complete in just one day or a week or 2 months even. It is something that we live by until we've achieved that ultimate objective. So this is where suddenly our new guiding principles, in addition to everything else that we know about the business and where we're currently at in the market today, these guiding principles ultimately help, again, take that list of tactics or just research that we've done, and it helps turn it into an actual strategy. That really weird, elusive word that sounds like it's really big, but honestly, it's actually really simple. So as a really quick recap, guiding principles, they are not just tasks, but they do inspire action, and they inspire consistent action across the entire business. It's not just for one particular person or one particular department or team, it's for everyone. And that's the important part when it comes to guiding principles. Okay, so we are going to do a little bit of a quick recap. Step number 1, have a clear objective. Know where you are going and be ready to very clearly define that, because sometimes objectives get fuzzy and you're not really certain like what that means. Step number 2, use some kind of framework. The one I prefer is the product market model channel fit framework. But basically, you want to use a framework that helps you put the business on a piece of paper so you can actually just see it and it's there and it's great. And also it helps you make decisions about where the business is today. Step number 3, know your target customer. This is absolutely critical. Do not waste time here, or do not skip the step. Get really into the minds of your target customer. Number 4, define your success gaps. What is currently blocking you from reaching those goals? And no, it is not to make you feel bad. I promise. It is to help you choose projects that help you overcome them, and also helps you prioritize accordingly. And finally, create guiding principles that inspire action. What are the new mantras that you are going to live by moving forward? You only need about 3 to 4 of them for you to really truly take steps towards meeting your goals. But what will inspire you to take action consistently over the period of time that you're going to need to accomplish that objective? All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe. And yeah, I'll come back soon. But while you're here, you should just watch another video, because what else are you doing? Because you're here on YouTube. So I'm just kidding. I know you got work to do, but it'd be cool if you did. All right, have a good one. Bye, guys.